The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the ECAT staff or board of directors.
Giving a voice to the voiceless, pulling stories out of the shadows and putting them under the spotlight, making sure that each person is valued and cared for. This is Humanity First with Peter Evers, presented by BAMSI.
Hi everybody, and welcome back to another version of Humanity First. I actually have been away for a few weeks. I've been back in my home country of England, visiting my mum, which was a very pleasant experience. She's actually 90 years old recently, and so we had a big party for her. And my link to my mother here is that she's a nurse, and last week here at BAMSI we celebrated Nurses Week in a wonderful celebration last Friday with many of our nurses meeting and celebrating their profession. I think it would be great today to have a conversation with one of our nurses, and we're going to have our Director of Healthcare Services, Sephora Auguste, come in and talk to us a little bit about why, first of all, why she's a nurse, but one of the things in our society right now is it's quite difficult to hire nurses. We have a shortage of nursing in almost every medical specialty. And so really, I'd like to have a conversation with Sephora about what are the benefits of becoming a nurse for somebody who might be thinking about it, somebody who's at the beginning of their career, somebody who might want to make a mid-career change, because the work that we do at BAMSI is so dependent upon nurses because we see so many people who have high medical needs. Many of those people are on vents 24/7, so we need 24-hour nursing at our facilities. And, without our nurses, we wouldn't be able to run such specialty services. So hang around, everybody. Sephora is going to be with us in a minute, and we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Jamie. I'm an essential worker here at BAMSI, and I'm a nurse. Nurses are essential here at BAMSI because as nurses, we really have the opportunity to make an impact. We have very small ratios, so we have the opportunity to really learn everything about the person served and be able to give the best care. It really serves such a great purpose for me as being a nurse, and really why I came into nursing. Learn more about nursing opportunities at bamsijobs.org.
Giving a voice to the voiceless, pulling stories out of the shadows and putting them under the spotlight, making sure that each person is valued and cared for. This is Humanity First with Peter Evers, presented by BAMSI.
Welcome back, everybody, to Humanity First. And actually, we have an additional bonus today because Emma Bernier is here as well from BAMSI. She's one of our nursing directors. Hi, yes. Emma, how are you doing?
I'm well, thank you, Peter.
And of course, Sephora. Thank you for coming. And Sephora, who is an old-timer at this, right?
Yes, yes.
So, well, first of all, thank you so much for agreeing to come and talk about nursing a little bit. I know it's something you know an awful lot about, and I'm just thinking back, and I was telling the listeners before how we had a wonderful Nurses Week last week. It was really lovely to go around. We have about 100 homes, residential homes, at BAMSI, and there was a Nurses Week banner outside of all of them because I was out and about last week, and it was just a lovely feeling. And then a celebration last Friday, and honoring one of our nurses who recently passed away as well, who was really one of those people that was the bedrock of nursing at our organization, which was touching. We had the family come as well, and it was a very sad occasion, but one of great reflection, I think. So, what I'm interested in talking about is this idea of why be a nurse. I've told my story about how my family is steeped in nursing, and as I said last week, my mum told me that when she was 5 years old, she wanted to be a nurse. She just had it in her bones. And I said, "Did you ever think about doing anything else, like in selling insurance or something like that?" And she looked at me and said, "No." And she always wanted to be a midwife, and she always wanted to be a health visitor, and she did all of those things. And then she went into family planning, which is Planned Parenthood in this country, and she's still a nurse. She's 90 years old, and she's still a nurse. I have a little bit of cold, so she was diagnosing me and telling me what to do, and I guess that never actually leaves you as soon as it sort of inhabits you, right? So You know, one of the things, I was doing a little bit of research before, and one of the things that it says, when you ask AI, I went to Copilot. I don't know if you're using AI nowadays, but I went to Copilot, and it's brilliant. It's really good. I mean, I know people think it's evil and all of that stuff.
Right.
But really, just asking it a question helps you a lot. And one of the questions I said, well, why is it? What is it that makes it so amazing to be a nurse? And actually, the first thing that came up was what I predicted it would be, which is making a difference. What does that mean to you? I mean, it's this sort of direct care, and I know that you're sort of a little bit removed from direct care, but you're not really, are you? You're in the programs every day, and but it is that business about providing care that changes people's lives, that makes them happier. And I've told this story about I was sick a while ago, quite sick. I got meningitis and I was in the hospital. The person I remember most was the care that I got from the nurse, because he was extraordinary, to the point, I think, when my wife came in, because it was a touch and go there, and we talked about him, we were both in tears, because he was just amazing. So what does making a difference mean to you? Maybe Emma, you can start.
Oh, you said a lot. So let me go back a little bit to how you started. I knew I wanted to be a nurse to some capacity as a young girl. I knew I wanted to help people, make a difference, make them feel good, make them feel better, make them feel seen. And I think that's how nurses nurse. We want people to be seen, be heard. So it's not just like the clinical stuff, the hands-on, the assessment. Yeah. Sometimes it's just emotional support. Yeah. And that's not medicinal. Yeah. You're just lending an ear. And I think that is one of the foundations of nursing. Yeah. And so for me, how I make a difference day to day in being a nurse is just like making sure that I hit all of that. You're seen, you're heard. How can I make you feel better?
Yeah. You say it's not medicinal, but it's as important, right?
Definitely.
Oftentimes when you're in a hospital or if you're incapacitated, you do feel a sense of isolation. You feel a sense of lack of control, right? We're very personal as people. We value our independence, and especially when we're working in gerontology, for instance, like being aware of people's loss of control, I suppose.
For sure.
And there is a medicinal part to that, but there's a real emotional part to that as well. Thank you, Emma. Sephora.
Right. Yeah. So for myself, I'll kind of give a little bit of a backstory, which I explained once before, but I'll say again. I always knew to some capacity that I wanted to be in healthcare. I think as a young girl, I was a tad bit confused between nursing and being a doctor, and very similar to your mom. I did also at one point want to be a midwife, or when I was initially going to school for pre-med, my goal was to be an OBGYN. So I always knew as a young girl growing up that providing care to some extent was what I wanted to do. After some time, I decided, maybe I should not do the OBGYN route and I should probably go into nursing. My thought with that was that I wanted to provide more of the hands-on direct care and be closer with the people that I'm caring for. To answer your question about how we're making a difference or what does that mean to me, honestly, in nursing, making a difference is just watching the trajectory of the people that we care for, from the time we meet them, watching all of their improvement up until the time of discharge, or maybe even after discharge. I also think about not only the patients that we're caring for, but their family and their caretakers and their loved ones. They're all part of the care that we provide. It's different. We may not provide hands-on care for them, but we're also caring for them. We're listening to their concerns when they're bringing their issues up. We listen to them, and our education to them also helps in caring for the patient that we care for. So all in all, we make a difference with the patients, the families, their loved ones, everyone. Yeah.
It's so true. I mean, that, we don't act in isolation, right? When, one member of a family gets, needs help, the entire family needs help. And, one of the things that, before we go on to the next thing, you mentioned that, I've worked in emergency rooms for 20-something years, and it's interesting because in the medical profession, if somebody comes in with a broken arm, right, it's a broken arm, right? And it gets set, and then there's a sort of knitting process that fixes the bone, and then the bone is all right. Sometimes these illnesses that we deal with in terms of intellectual disabilities, in terms of mental health, it's not always easy to see that, right? To see what the pathway is to wellness for that individual. And because we do such intense work with people who are really struggling, does that make it more difficult to see that pathway to wellness and recovery? Well, I'll start with you, Sephora.
So I wouldn't necessarily say it makes it more difficult, but your approach will be different in those cases, especially with people that have like intellectual disabilities. Yeah. In those cases, that's where the family and the caregivers, they come into play, where we rely on them to get the information that we need, depending on where the actual patient is at. Right. Sometimes they're not able to give us the information that we're looking for, so in those cases, we rely again on the caregivers. And it's the same thing with people that suffer from mental health issues. So it's not more difficult, it's just that our approach needs to change a little bit on our end.
Yeah, I like that. Anything to add to that?
No, I definitely agree with what Sephora said. And a lot of times when, we do serve individuals that may not have families that can kind of tell us how to communicate with them, so we're kind of learning them. And so we have to look at the whole diagram of what healthy living is and the standard of that, and then try to, I don't want to say speak for them, but make sure we kind of cover all their needs, if that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. There's another thing that's a little bit different, right? It's ensuring that those people meet their maximum potential as human beings. Mm-hmm. And I do think that's something in our line of work, from a nursing standpoint, from a direct care standpoint, from a management point, we're always taking into account. We're looking after people who have significant disabilities, but we're not seeing that. We're seeing a pathway for them to reach their maximum potential as human beings. And that's the beauty of it, if you ask me. Moving along, the next thing that comes up is two things, actually: job security and career growth. And I sort of laugh at that because, all of my career, I've felt like there's been a nursing shortage. I know it changes from time to time, but it's almost always, both when I was working in England and here, that it has been hard to hire nurses. There is no question that if you get a qualification in nursing, I'll put it to you. There are a lot of opportunities, right? There are a lot of different ways that you can go. I mean, if you become an accountant, I don't want to be rude to accountants, by the way, but if you become an accountant, you do accountancy, and you I don't know what they do with those numbers. I think they add up.
Right.
But here's nursing, and then there's this big field of opportunity. What do you think about that? That comes up number 2 in the AI search.
So there's definitely some security in the field. If you think about it, nursing is needed at the beginning of life.
Yeah.
And nursing is needed to some capacity at the end of life. So in between that, we're everywhere. Yeah. And so I know how to answer that, but I just think that nursing is just one of those careers that it will always be needed. There's a shortage, but that's what they say. We have nurses in schools. Right. We have nurses in the military. Yeah. We have nurses in law. Yeah. So we're everywhere.
That's right. Kim Winter, actually, who is our lawyer who looks at our risk, is a nurse and a lawyer. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
I mean, you're absolutely right. There's a broad range of things. Sephora.
There is. No, I agree with Emma that, there's nursing at the beginning of life, we have nurses at the end of life, and everywhere in between there's nursing. But in addition to that, like if a person becomes sick in between beginning and end of life, we have nurses that are involved in those cases. And then we also have nurses that are on the back end doing things that we sometimes don't even see. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, insurance companies, they hire nurses.
Review, right?
Correct, yes. They do like authorization reviews, and we have nurses like Kim Winters, for example, where she's not actually providing hands-on care, but she has the same knowledge that a nurse nurse has, and she's doing things behind the scenes or answering questions behind the scenes with her nursing knowledge. That's ultimately helping the people. So what I would say to that is that if a person has a desire to become a nurse, know that in addition or in conjunction to you being a nurse, if there's other things that you're interested in, there's usually a way where we can combine the two, where you can still feel fulfilled, you can feel like you're doing what you like, and you're still working as a nurse.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think the other piece of that is, and you are the living embodiment of that, is that, you know, you can, I mean, I know a lot of my friends, I have a friend called Anna who works at Boston Medical Center. She's 81 years old, right? And she's still working as a direct care nurse in the emergency room. She's one of the most, she texted me a few minutes ago. She's an amazing human being. Never wanted to do anything but direct care. Nursing also offers that career growth, doesn't it? And as I said, you know, you are, a couple of people have sort of taken that opportunity and are on that journey. Obviously, that's something that you wanted to do. It's not for everybody. Some people want to remain in it. What are the advantages of that in terms of developing a career? Sephora.
So, the advantages of that in terms of developing a career is that, for me at least, and what I've experienced is in all areas where nurses work, there's like a hierarchy, I would say. There's the people that's providing the hands-on care, then you go into management, you can go into leadership, and you can end up being a director. At times we even have, I think it's called a CNO or Chief Nurse Officer. Correct. So there is that trajectory where if you want to go that far in leadership, you can arrive there in your career. I want to say for me, in combination to always knowing that I wanted to be in the healthcare field, I always had a leadership component just in my life, just as a young girl growing up in many different places and areas where I've been in my life. So for me, knowing that I had this opportunity, I can be a nurse and I can also grow in leadership, it was a sealed deal at that point. At one point, I wanted to go back to school to become a nurse practitioner, but then in doing research, I saw that there was an executive nurse leadership program, and for me, it was just, let me do that. I can advance my degree and still work in leadership and nursing combined. So to answer your question, the opportunities are there. I think it's just more so people need to know that those opportunities are there, and they have to also believe in themselves and know that they can do that. Like they can take that leap and go into those type of roles.
You know what's really interesting about that is that, we led with the story about my mum who always wanted to be a nurse, but you always you had this notion of what leadership would be like, and then you sort of adapted that to the career that you chose. Well, that's really interesting. I don't know how many people, I sure didn't do that. Certainly didn't know what I wanted to do when I went to college, but that's amazing. Emma?
So for me, like I had said, I knew that I wanted to care for people, to some capacity, and I never go halfway into anything. I like to start from, and work my way up. I don't want to say bottom, but I got into healthcare by way of being a CNA, and that is hard work.
Yeah, real hard work.
And then once I got involved in different environments, the hospital, I kind of moved in. I became an EKG tech, phlebotomy, LPN for a very long time. We talk about, nursing shortage, but they wanted to end the LPN role for a very long time. And that also just kind of pushed me into going and getting my RN. And I loved it. I loved nursing and I loved healthcare and everything that I was doing at the time. I didn't see any other career option for me in that space. Or in that moment, I should say. And so I continued on to go to school. And Sephora talked about wanting to be a nurse practitioner. That is still a goal of mine. Throughout my career, I've had so many mentors that have just said, Emma, you need to just go ahead. You have it in you. When I became a nurse, I was thrown into like a supervisor role, So, my mentors, they saw the leadership in me, even though I didn't see it. So I continued on that role. But the long and short of it is that there is room to grow if you believe in yourself, if you find the mentors. you can.
Yeah.
And I'm still on my journey. So
Yeah. No, I love that. And, it's funny because when I go to the doctor, I hardly ever see my doctor anymore. And I'm okay with that because I usually see a nurse practitioner who is, no, I'm not going to say that, but they're just wonderful anyway. But, we've got a couple of minutes left. I just want to hone in on the work that you do in nursing, because we've talked generally about nursing. Nursing at BAMSI, why? Why, we are always looking for nurses. The work, to me, is amazing. But if we had to sum it up, what is it about the work that we do in residential homes with people with high medical need that you would say is attractive to people to say, come on, let's try it, Sephora?
Wow. Let's see. So I think it's very rewarding, very, very rewarding to see the people that we serve. They develop relationships with their staff, with their nurses that honestly, it's very difficult to explain because they view us as their family. Like they adapt us as if we are part of their family. And when you go into a room and you're helping someone feel better, or you're just even something as small as repositioning them so they're more comfortable, to see that smile of appreciation when they look at you, it's just wow. Like it's such a wow feeling for for myself and for a lot of the nurses and our direct care staff that works with the people that we serve.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Emma, what do you think?
BAMSI incorporates everything that I want to do in nursing right now. There's still that bedside nursing component. I get to go into the programs and talk to the person served. I get to take part in some assessments if need be, and there's some admin involved. Yeah. There's still that caseworker component. I communicate with the caseworkers in the hospital when they're hospitalized or in rehab. And I get to talk to the team and talk about, plan of care. Right. So it's just everything that I enjoy doing. And also to add, the group of people that we care for, they're special because they need that advocacy. Yeah. And so I'm able to be heard and give them the resources and help them, live the life that they want.
Yeah. No, that is wonderful. Both of those really encapsulate that. I actually, and we're running out of time. We could talk for hours, but I did talk to a nurse who was down at in Plymouth a few years ago, and she sort of came to BAMSI as a sort of second career. She'd done some work in ICU and she'd done some work on med-surg and that kind of thing. And she said, I wish I knew about this before, because you get to know people like family, right? Like, correct. First of all, you're in a community at BAMSI, but you're also working with people day in, day out. You know the families well, and you get to know over a period of time what your intervention is, which is different, right, from somebody who comes in on med-surg and they go again. I mean, in my case, I remember Brian like it was yesterday, and it was 12, 13 years ago. But that idea of having that kind of influence on someone's life is just amazing.
Absolutely.
We've run out of time, so thank you so much for coming in and talking about Nurses Week, which was last week. As I said before, when I was at the hospital, one of the doctors said, "Well, what about when's Doctors Week?" and somebody said, "It's Doctors Week every week." It can't be. Right. But I really appreciate it, and what I would say to anybody who is contemplating a career in nursing, think carefully about it. It's amazing. It's a lifetime of fulfillment, professionally and personally. And as you do, think about BAMSI because we have vacancies. So please have a look at the website BAMSI.org and go to careers and see what's going on. Thank you, everybody, and thanks,
Thank you, Peter.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.